We are going on a journey deep underground at the U.S.-Mexico border into the tangle of tunnels used to traffic not only drugs, but also high-level drug kingpins themselves. Nearly 200 of these tunnels have been discovered, and ABC's Matt Gutman takes us now for an up-close look.
In that beige garage is a multi-million-dollar hole in the ground, and we're about to stuff ourselves into it.
My God, is it dark and claustrophobic in here, and this is terrifying.
We are the only news team ever to go down that hole.
So that's the spike that my head nearly just went through.
Crab walking our way down a giant former drug smuggling tunnel between the U.S. and Mexico. One of the ways that tens of billions of dollars of drugs are trafficked into the U.S. every year.
Over the years, U.S. and Mexican authorities have found and destroyed over 180 tunnels along this border. The question, they say, isn't whether there are more tunnels, but how many and where.
Much of what's funneled beneath is the product of Mexico's Sinaloa cartel, headed by Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, busted out of the Altiplano prison near Mexico City earlier this year by having his comrades brazenly tunnel right into his prison cell. A tunnel even fitted out with a motorcycle on a rail. Notorious not only for his narrow escapes and prison breaks, but for the elaborate cross-border tunnels his cartel has engineered. Some, like this tunnel discovered last year near San Diego, are thousands of feet long. The job of finding them goes to the human moles of the Customs and Border Protection tunnel team.
You guys took the training, right?
Yeah.
Tasked with the sometimes deadly job of sniffing out the tunnels, honeycombing the 2,000-mile-long border with Mexico.
What's crazy is that there's a tunnel right here, and then there's a tunnel 20 feet behind. I mean, so there are 3 tunnels within a space of a year in 15 feet.
Correct.
Out of the 180-some tunnels found so far along the U.S.-Mexico border, 107 were discovered right here in the city of Nogales. Dozens of them within a football field of where we're standing.
Their concealing methods are just creative. It's creativity. It's that simple.
Those engineers also use the massive and fetid drainage system between the two sides of the border.
So right here is the tunneling attempt. So what they did is they chipped this wall out and they crawled through here with the bundles, and they followed the wall around the bend through the double gates, and then they came out in a pipe just north of the north gate.
Detecting them is nearly impossible. Like the one here in Naco, Arizona. It's in a retirement community carved neatly into the floor of a garage along this quiet street.
Looking at this house, would you ever think that there's a highly sophisticated tunnel right through there?
You could drive by it a million times and not have any clue.
Topping off this ruse is this engineering gem, a trap door operated hydraulically from 1,000 feet away in Mexico. It's perfectly camouflaged with the garage floor. But before we duck in, the one ground rule.
The rule is not to touch anything because it's caved in behind you and there's no way back out.
Once inside, the air is in short supply, so they have to pump it in. And what little air there is feels syrupy.
And the cockroaches are pretty big.
Well, the cockroaches too.
But it only has to be comfortable enough to do one thing: smuggle drugs fast.
And those sacks, I mean, that's got to weigh up 50 to 100 pounds, each one of those things. They have to haul them all the way back through this.
Correct. They drag them all the way back.
Dirt goes out and drugs go in.
If you do a 4,000-pound load of marijuana and you sell it, does that pay for the tunnel?
I'm sure that pays for the tunnel easily.
Nearly all of them are dug by hand, by day laborers working with simple tools for almost no money. No one knows how many tunnel diggers have died down here, but when diggers survive, they often thank the tunnel gods.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, a lot of the tunnels, they make little shrines in the tunnels. They vary. Sometimes they're just stuck in the caliche in the mud.
And our nearly hour inside the tunnel, there's some fear it could cave in.
You can see the plywood ceiling on here is all just rotted away. It just caved in.
Okay, so right now, just walk right here.
You just walk gently through here. You don't want to touch the walls or anything.
We see artifacts and what passes for entertainment.
Tunnel porn?
Finally, we reach the end of the tunnel.
If we go right to the end there, we would be under the fence.
The tunnel had been filled in on the Mexican side. We'd hoped to get to see it, but we're told that the Mexican government was too busy to see us.
He made a mistake, and that the Attorney General's office couldn't give us permission to film outside of the house, and no one from the institution could go with you tomorrow.
Turns out our agents were in hot pursuit of El Chapo, and we'd have to fend for ourselves. But that morning, we got a call.
they're willing to help us out.
Okay.
So the officer of one of the prosecutors there is going to meet us.
Okay.
When we get there.
Our convoy rolls up to a gated house. It's locked. And someone scampers off to find a key, which, in this case, turns out to be bolt cutters. Inside, the house is a mess, a labyrinth of sodden clothes and leftover food.
Still the hot sauce on the table, the tortillas as well. Maybe what's most amazing about this tunnel is that a family used to live in that house. There are children's toys and clothes, and yet in the backyard here, there was a massive piece of construction going on. That hole goes down about 25 feet. It's lined with concrete and cinder blocks. And in order to dig that tunnel, 900 feet in that direction, they had to remove hundreds of tons of dirt. And yet the neighbors say they saw nothing and heard nothing.
I asked the Mexican officer with us who built it.
¿Y hay cartel? Sinaloa, quizás? El Chapo?
He said he doesn't know. It was abandoned when they got there.
Right at the end of this street, just 4 blocks that way, is the U.S.-Mexico border. That right there is the border fence, which means that that tunnel was dug right underneath the noses of both U.S. and Mexican authorities.
Following the line of the tunnel above ground, Supervisory Border Patrol Agent Tom Pittman admits that's probably true. Customs and Border Protection has robots they insert in the tunnels. This is one of those robots viewed inside a drainage pipe used to smuggle drugs. But because of the tools and debris so often left in these tunnels, the robots often snag and get stuck. They tell us there's no technological solution on the horizon either. What they know is that when they find a tunnel, they know they have an exit point, and there's only one way to find out its entry.
So basically the technology that exists today is the same that existed 50 years ago when dealing with these tunnels.
One of us who can fit would go in there, typically without anything on, just a pistol and a flashlight.
And hope he doesn't find someone else in there. For Nightline, I'm Matt Gutman in Naco, Mexico.